2022 was a record-breaking year for so many things. But if we look at the weather extremes, not only did we see thousands of new summer temperature records emerge across the United States alone, but the Antarctic sea ice coverage plunged to a record low. To top it all off, the world's oceans were the hottest ever recorded last year. And it turns out we're more connected to the ocean than we might think, because those high temperatures are helping to drive more extreme weather patterns here on land.
Well, Dr. Michael Mann is a director of the Earth System Science Center at Penn State, and he joins us to break it down. Always good to see you. Happy New Year, by the way. We're glad you're joining us here in the third week of the new year. We want to talk ocean temperatures, and they reached a record high last year. Why was that?
Yeah, thanks. I'm actually at the University of Pennsylvania now, directing a Center for Science, Sustainability, and the Media. So just wanted to give you guys an update.
All right, good. We'll change that. Good to know. Congratulations, by the way.
It's great to be with you. So, this is a very significant finding, but it's sort of Groundhog Day now. Every year, we come to the same conclusion. That year was the warmest year on record for the oceans. Global surface temperatures fluctuate more from year to year. There was a La Nina that extended into last year that sort of lowered surface temperatures a little bit. That natural phenomenon kept surface temperatures from setting a record. But the effect of El Nino and La Nina sort of cancel out when you look at the total amount of heat going into the ocean. And that's where 90% of the heating is going into the oceans. They are accumulating that heat. And every year now is a new record. And 2022 was no different. And as you note, the heat doesn't stay in the oceans. That those very warm oceans and those warm surface temperatures put more moisture into the atmosphere, so you get more of those drenching storms, those bomb cyclones that we've seen hitting the West Coast that you alluded to.
Can you real quick just kind of go over the science? How do we get the ocean temperature? Is it an average of multiple locations?
Yeah, we actually go down 2,000 meters. So we're really going deep into the ocean, and we're using a variety of types of measurements. There are basically these diving platforms that go up and down in the ocean, and they measure temperature and salinity. There are what are known as XBTs. These are sort of fancy thermometers that you can throw off a ship and measure temperatures down below the ocean surface. There are now obviously satellite observations that supplement all of that. And so we take advantage of all of these different platforms that we have now for measuring ocean temperatures. And we've been doing this for decades, so we've got a pretty good idea of what the trend is over the past half century or so. And the numbers are unforgiving. Every year a new record.
So let's talk about that. How worried should we be about this trend? I feel like so many people kind of discount, the oceans is so big, it can take care of itself, it can moderate its temperature. But it does seem like we're seeing a pretty significant trend. Is that super concerning or just moderately concerning?
It's pretty concerning. I'll sort of, sort of interpolate between those two options. I would say it's pretty concerning. The heating of the oceans, it's significant. When that heat penetrates down below the surface, that leads to deoxygenation. And so you see sea life being negatively impacted because there's literally less oxygen in the upper part of the ocean. That's a problem for us. We rely obviously on fish stocks. It's a major source of protein. About 25% of our protein as a species comes from the ocean, comes from sea life. And so the other thing here is those hurricanes, those very rapidly intensifying hurricanes that we've been seeing here on the East Coast recently. One of the things that we know is that rapid intensification happens not just when the surface of the ocean is warm, but when the ocean is very warm below the surface, because that means that the hurricane is no longer stirring up those cold waters from beneath that would otherwise dampen the intensification of those storms. So the phenomenon of rapid intensification that we've been seeing, these storms that catch us by surprise because they intensify faster than our models predicted, and all of the damage that's done by that, again, that's ocean heat that's playing the key role.
And so what will life look like if we were to basically take the data and go 10, 20, 30 years, 40, 50 years in the future? What are we really looking at pragmatically, like life? I mean, are there no longer glaciers in the water? Like, what is the temperature in the Gulf of Mexico going to be if you're trying to go plan a summer trip there in August?
Yeah, that's actually the topic of my next book, our fragile moment, which is really about the choices that we face. Because one choice, we continue down this path of fossil fuel extraction, and we leave behind a fundamentally degraded planet. The extreme weather events we've seen so far, they're nothing compared to what our children and grandchildren will see in the future if we continue down that road. So that's one possible future, and it's not a good one. The good news is there's another possible future, and the science here is actually pretty helpful. What it tells us now, the science, the models that we've been using over the past decade or so that are more sophisticated in the way they treat the ocean and the ocean's ability to absorb some of that atmospheric carbon, what the models tell us now is that when we stop putting carbon pollution into the atmosphere, the surface of the planet stops warming up. So there's an immediate and direct impact of our efforts to decarbonize our economy.
And if anyone knows it, it's you. You are the man when it comes to this stuff. Thank you so much.
Literally.
Yeah, Dr. Michael Mann, well played there. At the University of Pennsylvania, we so appreciate you coming on the show today to talk about that.
Yeah, and leaving us with hope, which we always love to.
Yes, if you stop it, it will change and fix.
I mean, we saw that with COVID when everybody was kind of hunkered down, how the planet actually started to adapt and getting better and, healing.
It did.